Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. As we will now review the fourth round of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup in the 2025 edition. And as we talk about these great bunch of games, of course, the question now becomes, is there an indictment about the USL clubs or the lack thereof in the fifth round? They did not advance to this next round. And now is that an indictment about where, if promotion relegation does show up in the United Soccer Leagues, does this prove that USL making that move because of the Open Cup situation, that only the Pittsburgh Riverhounds advanced on a cup set, is USL still lacking being able to become a first division league of some ways? Now, look, uh, while that's an interesting conversation and it's an interesting discussion, the truth of the matter is this, is that I don't believe so. And I'll tell you why. Because you see, these last several years, we have had USL championship clubs, even USL League One clubs have gone further down the road. Once again, knockout cup competitions is always a crapshoot. No matter how you slice it, no matter how you do it, no matter what you may think happens or doesn't happen, that is not the case at all. It's the same thing if you watch the FA Cup in England, the Copa del Rey in Spain, the Scottish FA Cup, Copa Italia, the Pokal in Germany, the Dutch Cup over in the Netherlands. I mean, it doesn't matter. One year, you're going to get a lower division side making it to the final. And one year, you'll have two or three lower division sides reaching the quarterfinals or going as deep as the semifinals. And there's going to be that one year where the majority of the clubs from MLS or from the Premier League, from Serie A, the Bundesliga, French League On, they will be the dominating league that will be in the later rounds. It's just a crapshoot. One second. Pardon me. That's all it is, really. It's just a crapshoot because while we had at least several ties that lasted into extra time, and unfortunately, the MLS clubs were able to find a way to knock out the USL Championship clubs or the USL League One club or two, to get to that later stage or the next round. It just happens like that. It does not signal MLS is better than USL because they have more in front of them. Because once again, Major League Soccer has their own issues as well when it comes to the roster and it comes to how they are able to construct it. Now, don't forget, the roster regulations by MLS are they're very, very tough. All these designations, homegrown player designation, designated player designation, um, you know, discovery player designation, under 22 designation, the GAM, the TAM, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I'm only kidding with that part, but what are you going to do? I mean, look, all these acronyms that keep popping up. The problem is that while honestly, MLS is stronger against USL in some ways, but once again, it all depends on how you play your match. I can definitely tell you in this round, we could have had more than one cup set in the fourth round. We could have had more. If Indy 11 would have converted their third penalty kick and the penalty kick round would have been 5-5, maybe there was an opportunity for them to win it 6-5 in the 11. If the Charleston Battery did not score a goal, or shall I say, if the Charleston Battery did not go into extra time and lose it there, they were the better side against DC United in regulation time. They could have cupsetted DC, but they just didn't do enough to put the ball in the back of the net. And even if they did, the keeper was there to stop them. Um, I mean, I have to take out the Charlotte FC North Carolina FC matchup because that was a chess match. That was an exciting battle between a second division club and a first division club, and they were going at it with each other. So one is more of a wash. And even though they did have 1-1 before Ajimong made it 2-1 Charlotte, I mean, that could have been a cup set match as well. It could have been. Indy 11, they get their equalizer in the second half, early in the second half, after the Union scored their goal early in the first half, and then went all the way into the penalty kick shootout, as I said. Houston Dynamo at Phoenix Rising. If Phoenix Rising would have scored a goal, a secondary goal in regulation, that probably would have been a cup set. You know, if El Paso Locomotive would have held on to that 2-0 score line before Austin put 3 goals in the span of 7 minutes, well then, that's a cup set right there. So, you know, I just don't believe we have a issue when it comes to, well, MLS is more established or MLS has more financial backing because USL, you know, it's not going to work if they make the move to promotion relegation and all that stuff. But that's not the case in reality. It's who is the better side on that match day or on that match night. Because once again, if and only if the lower division side does find a way to knock out the top division club and move on, well, look, you just put another notch in your belt. That's all you can do. But for these clubs in MLS, the majority of them, the 16 clubs, 15 out of the 16 move on to the 5th round. New York City FC, who did not play their best and then went down to 10 men, they suffered the consequences of not playing their best, period. They suffered the consequences. They got eliminated inside second half stoppage time, on the back end of second half stoppage time. So, you know, this is not an indictment of how poor USL is. I will heavily disagree. This season, right now, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, it's the Princess Leia tag that I like to call. Of course, if you saw the original Star Wars, the first one, which was Episode 4, A New Hope, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope. And right now, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds are Obi-Wan Kenobi at this point in time. But look what happened last year. Indy 11 went far into the semifinals. There was another year where you had 2 clubs going deep into the semifinals. I mean, there was St. Louis SC. St. Louis FC when they were in USL Championship before they shut down operations. There was New Mexico United in their inaugural season in USL Championship. You know, we can't forget Sacramento Republic and the run they had several years ago, back in 2021 or 2021, 2022, I believe. So, you know, they fell short in the Open Cup. Did that mean that USL was stronger than MLS? No, it does not mean that at all. It just means that Sacramento Republic was managed better than the USL Championship clubs and any other club under the umbrella of American soccer, including beating Sporting Kansas City in the semifinals in their own backyard in a penalty kick shootout. You know, once again, we want to see this happen. I mean, look, we haven't had a club, even though we've had maybe 3 lower division clubs reaching the final, and they're 1 for 3. And we always go back to that 1999 season. That is the Rochester Raging Rhinos that knocked out the Colorado Rapids in the second half, 2-0. And in 2008, Charleston Battery fell to DC United at RFK Stadium in the final. And then in 2022, it was Orlando City beating Sacramento Republic at the time at Explora Stadium, which is now Inter & Co Stadium. That was a 3-0 victory in the second half of that final, and Orlando City won the Open Cup. So that's all it is. Just chalk it up to having a great run, but unfortunately just could not get the big break to take the championship away from those 2 MLS clubs. That's all it is. Excuse me for a moment. So, I mean, I don't know how much more you can ask for, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how much more you can ask for. I don't know how much more you can hope for to see if, and only if, once again, is a USL club weaker financially because all of a sudden a majority of them did not make it to the 5th round. Not the case at all. Absolutely not the case at all. If they would have done the job in regulation time, then this whole conversation would not be talked about. I wouldn't even make this into my intro monologue. You just have to give the MLS clubs, pat on the back, a handshake, send them a congratulations, goodwill card and stuff like that. And just tell them, congratulations, you got the best out, you got the best out of yourselves and you bettered the opposition. Once again, if North Carolina FC gets that second goal, or at least gets that first goal in regulation time and wins it 1-0, we wouldn't be talking about this. If they would have gotten the second goal in extra time after equalizing to make it 1-1, we wouldn't be talking about this. If the Charleston Battery would have scored in regulation time and eliminated DC, we wouldn't be talking about this. If the Battery scores in in extra time, we wouldn't be talking about this. Or they would have probably won it. If Indy 11 converts their penalty kick again in their third round of penalties against Philadelphia, and then they somehow edge them into the extra kicks rounds, we wouldn't be talking about this. We would be saying how Indy 11 moved on to the next round again after the run they had last year. Simple as that. It's all simple as that. Has nothing to do with the finances, has nothing to do with who's better structured, nothing like that at all. It has to do with who takes their chances the best, who advances the best, and put their side ahead. And when the final whistle blows, will you be moving on to the next round, or will you be going home early and empty-handed? That's all it is. Now, I thought, once again, Indy 11 had a chance to make another run. It didn't happen. El Paso started in the first round of the Open Cup, got to the 4th round, and they looked strong and solid for that 2-0 lead until they got to the 63rd minute. When they got to the 63rd minute, it was over. There's nothing you can say or do. Brandon Vasquez got a brace. He opened the scoring for Austin to make it 2-1. Then he closed the scoring and win it 3-2. And then a second goal came in to equalize by Uzuni in the 67th minute. That's it. 3 goals in a span of 7 minutes. Nothing more, nothing less. But, look, Now we're going to see if the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, if the Riverhounds will be the ones to threaten and make the attempt to move on to the quarterfinals. And if that victory over New York City FC gives them that boost that we think that it probably did give them, then maybe there's a good fighting chance that they'll probably knock off the Philadelphia Union. Now, once again, the Union has looked strong. And even though there was roster rotation, there's probably going to be tons of roster rotation anyway, because, this month of May and June, heavily soccer favorite. Now, we know the league, MLS, will take a break in June when we get to the group stage for both the CONCACAF Gold Cup and the FIFA Club World Cup for both Miami and Seattle. But until then, this is what we got. We're going to have tons of games in league play, and we're also going to have a big Open Cup matchup next Tuesday and next Wednesday for the 20th and the 21st. And all I can say is that if we're going to get ourselves another cup set from Pittsburgh, hopefully in the 5th round, they'll take a giant attempt and get and get the how you call it? I was going to say yes, and to get the opportunity. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens moving on, and we will see what we will do when we get to the Open Cup 5th round next Tuesday and Wednesday, May the 20th and May the 21st. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start my show right now as I'm waiting for my next guest. He is the podcast host for covering Charlotte FC. Just waiting for Caleb Adams to join me tonight as we get ready to talk about that match between Charlotte FC on the road against North Carolina FC down at Wake Med Soccer Park in Cary, North Carolina. And that match, as I said, was just amazing. That match was unbelievable. I mean, out of all the matches I've watched in the Open Cup, that, my friends, was incredible. I mean, it's not just the nonstop action that we had, but it was also the intensity that it brought. None gave any quarter and none relented. It was just unbelievable. I mean, if I don't know if these two sides ever faced each other in the Open Cup in the past. I probably would have to look that up, and I'll probably have to maybe contact some people over at the cup.us. But the way that these two teams battled on the pitch for regulation and scored no goals was just unbelievable what we saw. Unbelievable what we witnessed. To see them challenging each other and giving it their all was amazing. And, look, it's not about so much, arguing about the quality of the leagues, but, the dedication of wanting to prove to each other that they are rough and tough, that they are going to battle each other. They are going to fight, scratch, and claw for those 90 minutes and then move on to the next 30 if we are leveled. And it was exciting to watch. Very, very exciting to watch. And, as I bring it up right now as we wait for Caleb Adams to join me tonight, there it is. And, yes, not a lot of yellow cards for North Carolina FC, but once again, there are definitely great advantages here with the clubs when you're trying to battle it out for an Open Cup advancement. And so Jabril Diani, rough challenge in the 14th minute. I mean, there were times I think we saw it twice. We saw handbags at 5 paces, and I really thought we're going to have ourselves a battle, and I really thought we're going to have ourselves a big time moment where these two sides were going to drop the gloves, shall we say, and let the fists duke it out. But you know, it's just one of those things where that didn't happen. Thank goodness. I'm glad it didn't happen. But you know what? I didn't mind it at all. That's what you want to see. You want to see these clubs battling it out and just leaving everything out on the pitch. Just leaving everything out on the pitch and making it look really, really fantastic. And so basically, seeing what we saw that night at Wake Med Soccer Park was just tremendous. And then, of course, no goals. Give the goalkeepers credit as well. Give the goalkeepers credit as well for both Charlotte and North Carolina FC. They were just in perfect position in regulation time to stop every single shot that came towards them. They kept their clubs in the match, and we had a great stalemate through 90 minutes. And then, of course, we get to extra time, and that's when the dam breaks on both sides. First, of course, that 97th minute goal by Lille Abada, who made it 1-0. And at the time, you're thinking to yourself, well, look, great job, North Carolina FC. It's only one right now, but, we're going to commend you for a great match. But then all of a sudden, Rafa Metzinger, he comes out of nowhere 2 minutes later, and what a bomb from him. And that made it 1-1. And you're thinking, oh my God, we got a game again. We've got a game again. And we could possibly see, hopefully, maybe a second goal from North Carolina FC to really make Charlotte squirm. But unfortunately, it didn't happen because Patrick Agimong, I have to make sure I pronounce his name correctly. He buried that shot in the 104th minute and made it 2-1. And then we get to halftime of extra time. And then you're hoping for a second goal now to really come for North Carolina FC. But unfortunately, it did not come. And the back end of second half extra time, Nikola Petkovic in the 119th minute, 3-1. And then deep into second half stoppage time in extra time, Kerwin Vargas made it 4-1. And North Carolina FC, unfortunately, they fall at home to Charlotte FC by a final of 1-4 in after extra time. But, once again, even though the result did not go North Carolina FC's way, there's nothing to poo-poo about this. There's no shame in losing this one, because I'll tell you right now, North Carolina FC, they really showed what they're made of. They really strutted their stuff, and it was just a fantastic game from them. Once you get into extra time, overtime, and it becomes too great to come back, or as we all know in regular sports, if you win it in overtime, the game is over. Here, you play the full 30 minutes. So, once again, if all you can say is that, hold on. All you can say is that North Carolina FC, they did their best, and that's all you can really ask for. They did their best. This was one of the better Open Cup games that we all watched, and this was on that Tuesday night, and they were just absolutely magnificent. You watched that on CBS Sports Network. It was absolutely fantastic. No problem at all. and you were hoping for more. You were hoping for more. You were actually hoping for penalties. It didn't happen. And once again, once that dam broke, that was it for North Carolina FC. And there's nothing much more you can say or do. Nothing much more you can say or do. It was all over but the shouting. But once again, I thought one of the better matches that we saw in the fourth round. That once again, look, the MLS side did advance. North Carolina FC didn't. Bad luck, hard luck. But once again, what are you going to do? This is, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You live by the football, you die by the football. That's all it is, really. Nothing more you can say or do. You just have to hope that, once again, this situation, you know, if they do play them again in 2025, 26, I should say, and don't forget we're going to have a World Cup then too. So we'll have to wait and see about that. But when we get to it, we'll see what happens. But like I said, there's nothing much more you can say. There's nothing much more you can do, and all you can do, simply put, is this: just you gave it your best. You tried your best. And at the end of the day, that's how the ball bounces. That's how the breaks happen. And all you can do is just, like I said, pat them on the back, shake their hand. Great game. Nothing much more you can say or do. And once again, it is all over but the shouting. And once again, Charlotte FC will advance to the fifth round of the Open Cup, as North Carolina FC are done in the fourth round, losing in extra time by a final of 1-4. And you just get ready for next season for the Open Cup. Look, they still have the Jägermeister Cup. They still have USL Championship season to play for, to hopefully make the playoffs. But, once again, it's just really, really, really difficult. And the hope is that they'll give us a better run next season. That's all you can hope for. Just get a better run next season and everything will be just fine. Period. And that's all you can do. So unfortunately, it looks like we won't have Caleb Adams joining us tonight. I guess something has come up, and hopefully everything is okay. But we will wait and see as we continue on here on the Open Cup review show here on the 418 Fire American Soccer Show. And we got ourselves some more great guests tonight as we talk about American soccer once again in the Open Cup. Of course, the best thing about the Open Cup is all the dreams and sadly all the nightmares that happens. That's right, folks. Football dreams and sometimes can be football nightmares. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. And can't wait. I cannot wait to see what the situations will be for the fifth round and what we're going to have. So, once again, this is exciting. This is fun. And we're just going to get ready to go and get ready to enjoy ourselves and talk a lot about the Open Cup here tonight and what's going to happen down the road. So, now, as I wait for my next guest, he'll be here very soon. Of course, covering soccer throughout the entire area in the city of Pittsburgh. As we're going to move on next to that big Pittsburgh Riverhounds victory over the New York City FC side. Of course, that one went down to the wire as they eliminated New York City FC by a final of 1-0. Once again, the managing editor, the creator of Pittsburgh Soccer Now, John Krysinsky, joining me tonight. And here he is. John, good evening. It's finally great to see you in person. Now we don't have to worry about who's who behind the telephone.
No, it's good to see you in person, Daniel. Wow, what a week it's been. I'll tell you, as far as soccer goes, in on American soccer landscape here in Pittsburgh, we're getting ready for a really big week this week because there's a lot going on. Some of the lower leagues are starting up, and we have the debut of the Pittsburgh Riveters on Friday night at Highmark Stadium. My mind was blown a little this morning when pre-professional soccer club got it's a local broadcast deal, but a broadcast deal on Pittsburgh, Sportsnet Pittsburgh, which is like, the pretty big local carrier that has like Pirates and Penguin games, things like that. So that's pretty mind-blowing. So we've been quite a week here.
It really has been, John, before we get into the match, I got to tell you, I obviously, when I do my research for my shows or when I'm covering soccer as a whole, occasionally I like to go to these towns. I mean, I haven't been to Pittsburgh physically, I've been to Pittsburgh, but, Google Maps is a great learning tool to learn about, what's in the vicinity, the different neighborhoods in the city of Pittsburgh. And when I was on the south side of Pittsburgh along the Monongahela, um, I was very happy to see some of these bars showing Pittsburgh Riverhounds gear, showing flags, advertising. We're gonna watch. You can watch Riverhounds games here. I mean, how exciting is that? That the town of Pittsburgh, we all know it's Steeler driven, Pirate driven, Penguin driven, but now that the Riverhounds look like they are a part of the footnote in the Steel City.
Well, I think that what your last words are absolutely fitting. They're part of the footnote where, have they broken through in big ways? I mean, I think the past few years it's been with the attendance numbers have really increased. We've seen again not just the Riverhounds, but the growth of the game in our area. The college teams have been exceptional. The Division One teams on the men's side have all won either conference championships or competed in a very high level conference championships. Obviously, Pitt, made it to the Final Four a bunch of times. So, like there's the College Cup. So there's all these different areas growing. Steel City FC has really pushed itself into the stratosphere now in the USL League Two and the W League. So it's just a lot going on. It's positive. I think that the soccer community, the growth of the game from the grassroots to the highest level, which is USL Championship here, has been pretty good. And the infrastructure, with the Riverhounds, with Highmark Stadium, with the Riverhounds developing the Montour soccer complex. There's still a lot that they're working through to take some of these things to the even better levels, like expanding Highmark Stadium or Montour Soccer Complex having more than three fields. Their goal is to have 10 and to be a destination spot for for tournaments and for all kinds of big time soccer. So there's still steps to be taken, but they're making progress. But the fan support, it's been pretty solid. I mean, actually feels like a little bit of a hiccup in the past week or so. I think the Riverhounds numbers were a little bit down for the Open Cup and their last league match, which was, I don't know, maybe it's just an aberration, but that's a whole nother, that's a topic we'll be addressing on Pittsburgh Soccer Now. It's like last week, it seemed like across the United States landscape. I mean, I was watching Red Bulls Colorado Springs, and I'm sure you were watching that game. There was a lot of empty seats, and that's it. Two champions playing each other. I thought it was a little like, whoa. And then the next day, the Riverhounds, it wasn't a great turnout. So just some questions about the attendance. I think that's something we as soccer journalists may be questioning a little bit. Has it been too much saturation? What's going on here? Or is it just a little bit of a blip, the time of year, maybe that next wave of Open Cup games, so all the it's all going to be at MLS facilities, but or at least MLS teams, except for the Riverhounds. But yeah, it's I'm a little question there. I think that's something that they may have to explore moving forward. Is like, what are the best ways to maximize the opportunities for attendance. I think they tried to do some different things with the tournament this year that I thought were to help, to help with attendance, but I'm not sure. It didn't seem like it helped the Riverhounds and some of the other USL Championship teams. As I know, Louisville City didn't have great numbers attendance-wise in Tampa. So I know I didn't plan on talking about attendance numbers, but it was just a little concerning because you figure like an MLS club is coming to Louisville, to Tampa, to Pittsburgh, and the attendance numbers would be really great, but they haven't been.
No, I understand, but look, hopefully it's only a blip, and when we get later into the season, things will get better. So let's go ahead and talk about this one, and something new here now since making this move to the this new platform I have on StreamYard, and here it
Yeah.
comes, John. Look at that.
Oh, look at
Not
that. Look at
much,
graphics.
not much to talk about except for the goal. But I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think has contributed the way that Bob Lilly has been managing this club this season? Because I'll be fair here to say that both sides, more the Riverhounds than New York City FC did. I thought the Riverhounds were engaged in this one, and they really were trying to threaten New York City FC a lot, but they just couldn't get that final pass happen to create that shot. Or even if they did, the goalkeeper wasn't even bothered too much, or he was in perfect position to make the save. But what do you think about the match in its entirety so far? That when you
Well,
watched it?
in my immediate takeaways were that at least that for large portions of the match, the Riverhounds were willing to absorb pressure. It was almost like they were going back to the basics in terms of Bill Lilly ball or Bob Lilly's coach teams, like in terms of especially against an opponent that is dynamic or has those attacking pieces. And the Hounds are in the middle of a 3 match and 8 day stretch. So they had to, even though it was an Open Cup match against an MLS team, they still had to do some serious squad rotation. So they did play some younger players. They went with a number of younger guys in the lineup. Max Broughton and Jorge Garcia, Guillaume Bacter. These are first year pros that they're all coming out of like Big East programs. It seems like Bob really went all in on a couple players from Villanova, Broughton from obviously not Big East but West Virginia, and then Vactor from UConn, and like there's this. It just seems like Bob is really must have seen a lot of good things from Big East players this year. But anyway, there's younger players there, and obviously there's some mainstays, Danny Griffin, and it was the first chance for the Riverhounds to start Bertrand Jacquesson this year, who he came in as a big offseason signing. He was with the club, the former Pitt standout, was with the club late last year on loan from Real Salt Lake, and had such an impact, 5 goals, 5 goals and 2 assists. But he got hurt in the preseason and hasn't really played much. So it was his first start, and I thought and what Bob decided to do was do a lot of squad rotation at the forward position. Because Berton was still coming off the injury, and they had this match against Louisville on Saturday. Berton only played the first half, 45 minutes, and then they brought in a rotation, Brigham Larson. I think Augie Williams was ready to go in if they were going to go to overtime. So it was going to be a heavy squad rotation at the top forward position. So they were doing everything they could to frustrate New York City FC, and they did that. I mean, New York City FC had numerous chances to win the match. The Hounds are willing to absorb the pressure. There have been lots of good versions of the Hounds absorbing pressure and then becoming a dangerous countering team. This year they've spent so much time in the preseason and early part of the season devoted to becoming a better possession team, and they've struggled in league play. Right now they're 2-4-2 overall, and they haven't scored many goals. They had 2 home wins in late March, but that's been about it in terms of W's. And so they're struggling. So anyway, in this match against NYCFC, they kind of got back to the basics. Defensively, were outstanding. They did absorb some pressure. Goalkeeper Eric Dick made two incredible saves. They were both early in the second half when after the halftime break, NYCFC made some adjustments and they started to bring some more pressure after a fairly evenly played first half. Those two saves were fantastic. And I think it lifted the Hounds a bit there. But again, attacking wise, they really were, they were getting forward on some countering chances, but nothing substantial. So it was remarkable that, they got to the 90th minute. Oh, actually, before that, I think the match really turns in the 79th minute. The red card. Tanis, was there was the Tanisjevic. I think that's the best pronunciation I could come up
Close
with.
enough. Close enough. It's okay,
Yeah,
John.
for NYCFC. But he, that red card, what happened with the Hounds again, were subbing quite a bit. So they brought in Bradley Sample, who started a lot of matches, just, kind of on and off, part of that midfield rotation for the group. Came in for Larson, which was an interesting sub. They didn't have a true forward in the game, but yet he's his fresh legs. There was a long ball played. It took a bounce, brand new turf at Highmark Stadium. Took
Mm,
kind of an awkward bounce, and Tanjevich, he sort of hesitated, kind of misplayed it a little bit, and Sample got a good touch on the ball, and then Sample had a clear path, and he was pulled down, and so
yes, he was.
the Serbian got the red card and was sent off. So that sort of turns the match, and then from that point, that last 10, 12 minutes into stoppage time, the Hounds were pushing. But what was interesting was right after the red card. Sometimes both teams need a little bit of time to adjust. And I thought actually during that time, NYCFC, and they had two golden chances to put this game away. They had two breakaways,
Mm-hmm.
and they couldn't complete those.
No,
They were one breakaway where it was a clear opportunity. I think it was Fernandez
it
on the
was,
breakaway.
yes.
He completely missed a great opportunity. There was another one where I think Ojeda hit the bar,
Mm-hmm.
and so those two chances, and even on Fernandez's breakaway. I mean, even Eric, if you read my article, Eric Dick quote was essentially, I put my head down, I missed it, and I heard the crowd, I heard the crowd sort of cheer that it didn't. He said he felt like he heard it hit the side of the net. He thought that was it. He thought it was hitting the inside of the net, but it hit the side of the net, and he was breathing a sigh of relief. And of course the Hounds were just persistent. After that, they really got the ball forward, and those dying moments of the match, put some pressure in, and then set up a corner kick. The Hounds have not scored on a set piece all season. So you talk about Open Cup magic. That's certainly Open Cup magic because Bobby Mertz serves up a beautiful ball. But if you watch the replay, Beto Jedric, the last year's Big East the Defensive Player of the Year, on the back end, makes a good move, gets behind the last kind of that defender, and
Mm-hmm.
just makes a perfect beat on the ball and heads it in. And you saw the celebrations, and it was something that it was a lift that the team needed, that the fans, the franchise, the team needed at this point because they've been struggling as a franchise. So that's kind of my takeaway on the whole match. But very exciting stuff. Just wish more fans were there to see it, but it was exciting, and they're the only lower division team left. So bring on the Philadelphia Union and our good friends from the other side of the state.
Exactly. And my question to you is this. Is this is what you've been itching for? I mean, I don't know if it's happened in the Open Cup in the past, but Pittsburgh versus Philadelphia. We all know what Flyers, Penguins, Steelers, Eagles, Pirates, Phillies. Now we're going to get in the Open Cup, Riverhounds and the Union. Is everyone jacked up for this? They're ready to go.
It's weird. I haven't completely caught the vibe yet. I think that, of course, the Steel Army, the supporters, everyone's going to be up for it, that are real close to the team, the diehard supporters. I think the bigger, more mainstream, I think that's the question mark, right? Is this is a big opportunity, for both soccer in Pennsylvania. This is this could be a really cool thing. We haven't had we had the Keystone Cup Derby for a few years there in the late 2010s, which was so fun, so much exciting, with just Harrisburg, Pittsburgh. But the Union, we had Bethlehem Steel, we had some good games there with the Riverhounds. But this is the match that we've always wanted to see, at least in the Open Cup level, is Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Union. This I think it's a great coaching matchup. I love the coaching matchup. I love that fact that, it's just going to be, I mean, Union they went the distance with Indy. Their squad rotation will be a question mark. And then, of course, our good friends, we started Pittsburgh Soccer Now and way back in the mid 2010s. But we now have a brother site, our brotherly love site, Philadelphia Soccer Now, which is, it's kind of cool. So we're going to be kind of doing some, hopefully people will follow both of our sites leading up to that match and then for that match,
You,
because we're
mhm.
excited about that.
You mean this rugrat right here? Matt
Yeah, this
Ralph
guy, there
of
he is.
Philadelphia
There he
Soccer
is.
Now, who's coming up
There he is.
afterwards, of course, but
All right, love it. We got them both, and we will be certainly talking soon as well. How you doing, Matt?
Good. How are you, John?
Yeah, I'm good. Good.
Nice to see you.
Just talking Open Cup.
Finally, it's finally happened.
it's
It's
finally happened.
happening.
After those past several years when Harrisburg was around, now it's finally Pittsburgh's turn. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, John, thanks for joining me tonight. Good luck in USL Championship, and hopefully we'll get a great match with you, with the Riverhounds and the Union. So thanks again.
All right, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks a lot. Once again, John Krysinsky, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, and we're going to move on to the other side of the state, the eastern side of the state in Philadelphia. Matt Ralph, Philadelphia Soccer Now. Matt, before we begin with the matchup against Indy 11, did you expect Bradley Carnell to make this turnaround so fast in league play?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of expected, you always get like a bump, right, with a new coach. And I think they had, some players that, needed a preseason. They got that. I mean, Danley is the first person that comes to mind in terms of just being better integrated with the squad and better connected with his teammates. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like completely unexpected, but it's definitely the pieces were there for for them to do well in the beginning of the season, particularly not having Champions Cup or not having Champions Cup. I mean, that's a big thing to enter a season, and you're competing against teams that generally do have that, at least the better teams. So I think in that respect, it's been maybe a little better than expected, but I don't think it's been really too terribly surprising. I mean, beating Atlanta and DC is not surprising.
No, it's not.
Losing to Miami is not surprising. Drawing Columbus is not surprising. So it hasn't, at least for me, I haven't been overly surprised by anything just yet.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. But, once again, this was a big matchup against Indy 11 that had that big run last year going into the semifinals and unfortunately losing it to Sporting Kansas City. But just to see what the Union did, of course, a lot of rotation in the roster to get ready for this one. And here we go, Matt. You're going to love this. Ever since I joined this platform, I'm telling this to everybody. Ever since I joined this, I can do this now. How about that?
That's amazing. I love it.
Isn't it great? It's just really amazing. Of course, Bedoya gets that early goal for Philadelphia in the 6th minute. I didn't expect it to happen that quick. I thought there was going to be maybe a little bit of here and there, but yeah, Bedoya said, "Nope, I want it, and I want it now."
Yeah, the veteran, hasn't played a ton this year, but he's definitely a guy you want in a cup competition. Doesn't have a ton of experience in the Open Cup, really, right? Because he spent a lot of his career abroad, and the Union. There were 2 years there was no cup, and the Union had been one and done for several years in a row. So it's a great opportunity for him to wear the captain's armband to start, and I'm sure he'll start again against Pittsburgh. But yeah, great goal. Ali doesn't have the legs necessarily, although he did play 120, to be a regular starter in this league anymore. But he still makes great runs into the box, and he's aggressive, and he wins balls in the air. So, perfect cross from Bayou, another player who hasn't really played a lot. He's had some injuries, but it doesn't seem like Carnell favors him too much either. So, it was a good opportunity for him to do what I think he does best is cross the ball. Other than Kai Wagner, he's one of the best crossers of the ball on the team. So yeah, I mean, it was a great start, and what you kind of want in a game like this, but obviously they weren't able to get that second goal, and I think that's the difference in this game is not being able to get that second goal, because when you don't get a second goal against a team like Indy 11 and would be the same against Pittsburgh in a week or so, then you just basically give the other team, belief, and that little extra kind of momentum for them to try pull off an upset.
No, absolutely. And the one thing there is that Amoa for Indy 11 found the way to get that equalizer early in the second half, and then everything just went, I guess, the way you thought it would go, because both sides, they gave no quarter to each other. They fought for every blade of grass on the pitch, and they forced extra time, and still nothing in extra time. I thought it was a great battle. I thought both sides really took it to each other very strongly. And I just loved what I watched.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good battle, and it was a good game, and I was particularly pleased to see Benefamu have as good of a game as he had. He's someone who used to play here in the academy, and was part of the Union 2 setup, and so it's great to see him. Now as more of a veteran center back in USL. Doing as well as he was. So I think he was key to preventing that second goal. And, their goalkeeper, had a pretty great game too, Charles Cook. And, those are the two guys really that stood out for me defensively, that were, cutting down some of those chances. And the Union definitely were creating them, just not, not getting past that spine of Indy 11's defense. So so much credit to them, to recover, because they did not look good in the early going of the game, and it looked like they might be poised to get steamrolled. And I think the way they recovered was impressive. And I think it's one of those things where, for all the talk about the difference between the leagues and the levels, and how MLS teams, had a lot of wins in this round. I still think that it shows, this game at least, that there's, yes, the Union rotated all of that, but there's still, these are professionals, right? And they can play, and they can hang with tough teams in MLS and battle. And so I think that was cool to see, and that's kind of what you want in a competition anyway. You want it to be a little bit of a grind, although I wasn't there, so in the building. So 120 minutes isn't as bad when you're watching at home.
Thank goodness for Paramount Plus, I would have to say. Yeah, I mean, I've always told you about how much I respect Andre Blake for being such a great goalkeeper, and his positioning has been fantastic. And, he deserves the tag as the best goalkeeper in CONCACAF, without a doubt. Jamaica's always up and down. We always know this, but I mean, he's been fantastic as a goalkeeper. Andrew Rick, the backup, what has he been for the Union when, either, Andre gets a break, or when he was injured, he held the fort?
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Rick is an interesting. He's an interesting kid. He's a local kid. He's born in Maryland, but he's Pennsylvania. I get annoyed when they talk about him being from Maryland, because he's very local. His siblings play high school soccer here in the area, not far from me. So he's someone. I mean, I remember talking to Tommy Wilson about him when I saw him for the first time. Tommy Wilson, the old academy director, and I think he was 12 at the time. And Tommy was like, "Yeah," I was like, "And this Rick kid, like, he really knows how to play. Like in terms of just positioning and stuff for his age." And Tommy's like, "Yeah, he's like a mini Premier League goalkeeper back there, or something something to that effect." And it's like, so even from a young age, like he positionally, he just has a stature, and he's good with his feet, and he's a good shot stopper. But penalties, it's like a whole nother level with him. That I remember he won some penalty shootout and won. I don't know if it wasn't the final, but in that like U13 CONCACAF thing they did, the Union team went down and won. And he's been from a young age with the Union, and their academy has been kind of the clutch penalty save keeper. And now with Union 2 having MLS Next Pro having penalties, he ends up being the most experienced penalty shootout person in the field or in either team in this game. So as much as I dislike penalties for no reason other than for an extra point, and writing about it is clunky, it definitely is something that's beneficial, and it gives an advantage to keepers who play in Next Pro, that they have to practice these shootouts. And for the shooters who have experience, I mean, Frankie Westfield, he's hit plenty of penalties in the shootout from being in Next Pro last season. So just a really promising prospect for the Union. Obviously Blake is a huge bar, but also Blake is an influence, right? And I think if you look around the league and see all these goalkeepers who've been through the Union and have not played because of Blake, but they've benefited from training with him and being around him, and they're maintain a relationship with him and the training staff here in Philadelphia. I think there's the influence of Blake goes well beyond just the games and what he does in a game, which is we can't say enough about. And,
no, absolutely.
His influence on Rick is it's hard to quantify really, because he's been around for so long, but it's another benefit of having him.
No, absolutely. And it's really going to work well right now. I think Rick has been, the day that Andre Blake no longer plays for the Union, to me, it looks like Rick is the heir apparent to be the full-time starter. That is when Andre does leave the Union, whether goes to another club or decides to retire. So we'll see what happens, but that's how I see it with Andrew Rick right now. As I talked with John before, first time that Philadelphia and Pittsburgh will be in the Open Cup battling each other out. Technically, it's not the trifecta, but if it is, well, I'll let you have it, because you already played the Harrisburg City Islanders long time ago, maybe more than once. I think it was 2 times you've played against Harrisburg over at Subaru Park. Are we expecting an Eagles, Steelers, Flyers, Penguins, Phillies, Pirates type of deal, or is this going to be toned down a bit?
Yeah, I think it's a given that it's a Keystone Derby, and it's the first one we've had, and at least here in from Philadelphia Union perspective. But honestly, like I think. And we're not here to talk about other sports, and I don't know much about other sports, but it annoys me that Philly and Pittsburgh isn't a bigger rivalry in terms of sports. And part of that's because of, we have the Cowboys in the same division as the Eagles, but not the Steelers. Like, help me make that make sense. Baseball, the Pirates play in the Central Division. Why does that make sense? So I think that's, I think Pittsburgh and Philly would be much more significant rivalries in sports if we actually had teams playing each other. Case in point, we have finally, after all these years, the Riverhounds are playing the Union now. Of course, USL Championship, Riverhounds came in and completely annihilated Union 2 several years ago when Union 2 was still in the USL Championship. And of course, there was a fun rivalry that kind of developed between the Riverhounds and Bethlehem Steel. But unfortunately, it's just there aren't enough opportunities for it to be what it could be. And I mean, this is the first time, and I'm excited about that. And I just think it's something that in all sports should happen more often than it does.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the fifth round. Matt, as always, I appreciate your time. Welcome to the new format for the 40 Fire American Soccer Show. Can't wait to have you back on regularly. And I will talk to you again soon, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you once again. Matt Ralph, Philadelphia Soccer Now, joined us here tonight to talk about the Union and their involvement in the Open Cup, defeating Indy 11 after going 1-1 through regulation extra time. They win it in the penalty kick shootout 5-4. My next guest, coming all the way down in Houston, Texas, is Bayou Soccer City. And this is Derek Stowers for the first time face-to-face with me. Welcome, Derek. Welcome back. Great to see you finally in person. And how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. Minus the Seattle loss, but moving forward in the Open Cup is always nice, especially after last year's going down to Detroit. So it's good to get that first one out of the way.
It really is. And, you know, I got to tell you, watching that match in Phoenix against the Phoenix Rising, I think we have to admit, I mean, they were a match. Just to see Ben Olsen trading basically tactical ideas from Papa Modou Ka, who's a good player in his own right. I mean, what he's done tactically with Phoenix has been amazing in the Open Cup.
Yeah, I think what the Dynamo did and what Ben Olsen was able to put through was a pretty solid game plan. But what Phoenix was able to do, and all credit to them, was frustrate the Dynamo and make it incredibly difficult to break through. I mean, we had something like 20-something shots, and, you know, their goalkeeper was incredible as well. I mean, he had some incredible saves, and he kept them kept it pretty close. And, you know, Ben Olsen said after the game, he didn't think that their penalty should have been a penalty, but, you know, you roll with it, and he liked his rotation and we stuck with it. But, you know, you have to give a ton of credit to Phoenix, because, you know, it was close. It was a lot closer than it could have been. Because I think Ben put out a really solid game plan with his guys. He knew Seattle was coming up on the weekend, so he had a good rotation. But, you know, you never know what you're going to get sometimes in the U.S. Open Cup.
Exactly. You never will. So here we go, Derek, and this is the new thing now that I have on my show. How you like that?
I love it.
Look at that. So many goals and so many yellow cards. I mean,
Yeah.
this was a battle, definitely a battle. And, you know, DeAndrade Vieira getting that opening goal in the 17th minute, that was a great play from him to be in perfect position to put the ball in.
Yeah. And what a delivery, too, from Nico Lodeiro. Just the way that he cut back post to get clean, just clear on, was just incredible. I mean, just right spot, great placement of the ball. Everything went right. You know, just nailing the header back post through traffic. You know, chef's kiss, right?
Absolutely. It definitely was. And then, of course, as we saw it on the replay, and unfortunately, VAR is not in the fourth round. I believe VAR will start in the quarterfinals of the Open Cup now. Yes, the ball did change directory even after the contact happened. And I don't think there was any contact on the play to make it a penalty, but once again, no VAR. So the referee had to go with what he saw, what he thought he saw.
Yeah.
And Phoenix gets the penalty to make it 1-1. Darius Formella converted in first half stoppage time. But from that point on, Houston, I thought, defended very well. They absorbed a lot of pressure, didn't they?
Sure. I Phoenix came out after that goal, going into the second half. Phoenix definitely came out pretty aggressively, which is why I think Ben ended up going to his bench probably a little earlier than he wanted to get some of his starters in, like Jack McGlynn and those guys, to kind of shift the momentum of the game. But, credit to the defense for, absorbing that early pressure and then being able to change the game in the way that works to their advantage. And even though it took going into extra time, credit to Phoenix on their end as well for, making it go to overtime or extra time. The way that the momentum shifted after that. But before, the way going into the second half, Phoenix certainly controlled the ball a lot better. They looked more dangerous because they felt like there was, after that goal, there's blood in the water. They felt like they could get this. And, that's, pretty remarkable. But, again, credit to Ben for making those adjustments and, digging his way out, so to speak.
No, it really did. And then once we got into extra time, made some solid substitutions. I'm glad he didn't waste all his subs during regulation, because he wouldn't have gotten, I mean, one extra sub, yes, but I think he really made a great move bringing in Jack McGlynn. Ever since Philadelphia let him go, or they traded him to the Houston Dynamo, what has he been for the Dynamo since you acquired him?
He's been probably my favorite player. I forget exactly what the Dynamo traded for to get McGlynn, but he's a steal. I mean, he can play as an 8, he can play as a 10. He could probably play as a winger if you want him to, like a creative wing. But he is just he can play really well from the outside. He can play really well centrally. He cuts inside. His vision is there. You saw and I will probably talk about it in a little bit, but we saw his goal was just phenomenal. But he's got vision. He's unselfish, but he's selfish when he needs to be, which is exactly what you want out of a creative midfielder. He's our current assist leader in the regular season, so that's no surprise. He's just a very good player, and he, for a team that's really lacking kind of an identity since we lost Sache and Coco.
Mm-hmm.
It's really refreshing to have a player like him come in, so you can kind of form an identity, so to speak, because even though we're I think 14th out of 15th in the Western Conference right now. So you look at the bright spots, and Jack McGlynn to me is easily one of the brightest spots for the Dynamo in 2025. And the pieces are beginning to come together, not necessarily in terms of personnel, but in terms of we're starting to figure things out. And I think a lot of that you can see within this Phoenix game, because even though the Dynamo were not necessarily, totally dominant, you saw, okay, we're doing well. Oh no, there's a setback. And then you adjust. And that's kind of like pretty reminiscent of how the 2025 regular season has gone for Houston. Things are going well. They're not, how do you adjust? And, hopefully things work out. So that's kind of how it is. And Jack McGlynn is a big piece of that.
Yeah, that was a hell of a shot. I mean, we saw the taste of it. For those of you that watched the January camp window, the long bomb that he scored in the first game, I forget who the opponent was, but yeah, that first goal was just unbelievable. And how he bent that sucker from the near side going to the upper far 90 was just unreal. And I mean, we know he can do it, but to do it there was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think I keep looking down because I've got my notes, but I think I wrote down It was a FIFA-esque type goal. Like he's holding R1 on the controller and, just bent it left foot, perfect. Just heck of a goal, exactly what you wanted at that moment too, just to turn the tide. Because then, what that did from then on is it forced Phoenix to stay out of that block and then to push forward, which is how, the next few goals were able to come. Because, especially the next one, which I'm guessing we'll talk about, came from the break, which was because Phoenix got exposed because they had to keep pushing forward. So that goal really did open things up even more, because in that moment, it was exactly what you needed just to pull Phoenix out more. And instead of sitting back, the Dynamo did what I think is the right thing, rather than absorb the pressure and hope it goes through to the finish. They went for the kill, and then they did it again. So perfect goal, FIFA-esque. Couldn't ask for more at that moment.
Exactly. And once again, at the start of the second half of extra time, Ezekiel Ponce made it 3-1 in the 112th minute. And I thought he was in a great position to put that ball into the back of the net. He was never troubled at all.
Yeah. So there's been, especially from my writing outfit, at least, behind the scenes, we've been a little critical of Ponce for not, sort of a lack of production, living up to his price tag, so to speak. But one thing that you can't deny what he's great at is being in the right place at the right time. He's really good. And Ben said this after the game, just about how the Dynamo were able to, and we saw it with the first goal, we saw it with this, how the Dynamo were able to kind of get behind and cut through the Phoenix defense. And we saw it with several different players, but Ponce right there, that was the, the first dagger to kill the game off. And it was exactly what, Jack McGlynn did exactly what we needed at the time. This was exactly what we needed to kind of kill the game off. And that's what Ponce did,
Exactly. Sebastian Kowalski made it 4-1. It was already over, but the shouting, and Houston advances to the next round. You're going to be going on the road, I believe, to the Q2 in the capital of Texas, in Austin. Let me ask you this. Did you think you're going to face Austin in this fifth round, or did you think you're going to host El Paso?
You never know. I mean, with the U.S. Open Cup, I kind of wasn't, paying attention. I was already looking ahead at Seattle, but it is what it is. And one of the things with Austin is they're always close, tight games, no matter what. It's going to be incredibly difficult at Q2. As I mentioned, the Dynamo haven't been very good this season. 14th out of 15th in the West. We've only got 2 wins this season, but one of those is against Austin. So that's going to be, they're going to be looking for payback, but we're going to be looking to carry that going forward. And, of course, that win was at Shell Stadium, but going to Q2, it's going to be fun.
The one thing about Ben Olsen is this, and I'll never forget it because he was coaching DC United. I think it was the 2013 Open Cup. They had their worst season ever, not just being in last place, but they were just god awful. But somehow, some way, they play in the Open Cup and they won the whole thing. So I don't have to tell you this. Ben's got that magic. It could happen. He could will you to a third Open Cup title, which would be his second as a Houston Dynamo manager. So I will not write him off just yet.
Definitely don't.
I won't. I definitely won't. But it should be exciting and fun, and hopefully we'll get a good one in the fifth round. But anyway, Derek, I appreciate your time as always. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for being on again, and hope to have you back on down the road. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, Derek Stowers, Bayou City Soccer. Excuse me. As he talks about the Houston Dynamo winning in extra time over Phoenix Rising of USL Championship. And now my guest, who thankfully the term is better late than never. And then again, it's going to be a $10 fine for him when I see him. I'm kidding about the money. Joining me right now is Caleb Adams, who covers Charlotte FC. And he joins me right now. Caleb, welcome to the show for the very first time. How are you and what's going on?
I am guilty as charged. I will pay the fine. I'm
It's
doing
okay.
good.
That's all right.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
I'll give you the first time break. I'll throw away the 10 lashes. No, I'm
All
kidding.
right,
I wouldn't do that. But anyway, to talk about this game once again, from your perspective, I don't know if Charlotte FC has played North Carolina FC before in the Open Cup when they were in USL League One, but to me, that felt like a real proper derby match in the Open Cup.
Yeah, no. So Charlotte, I think you may be referring to Charlotte Independence, which is a different team to Charlotte Football Club. They're two different entities, but yes, you're all correct about this is the first time these two sides meet ever in a competitive match. Charlotte FC played NCFC in preseason this year, but never for something on the line like a round of 16 spot at the U.S. Open, and it was. I think that there's always been a little bit of a rivalry between Charlotte and Raleigh within the Carolinas. I'm a Carolina native. I'm actually a Raleigh native. So this is my hometown team versus my adopted MLS team. So it was really, really cool, really surreal to see this going down.
It really, really was. And I really have to commend both goalkeepers for both sides. I mean, look, I know everyone knows how David Bingham is. He's always been a solid goalkeeper. But boy, oh boy, I thought that the first shot on goal from North Carolina FC, how he was able to get his hand up and just barely parry it off the bar was just amazing to watch. And then in the second half, how he extended his arm to prevent that from Olex Chamberlain from burying that shot.
Yeah, it's tough to follow up a goalkeeper of the year in Christian Kalina, which is a normal starter for Charlotte FC. But when Bingham's come in, he's performed, and he doesn't play at all. Like really, rarely does he play. So what impresses me the most is how he's able to have those quick reflexes despite being cold. You know, he's coming into these matches kind of quite cold.
Yeah, he really is. He really, really is. But still, I give him a lot of credit for how he performed out there. And amazing. As we're watching, and I'm going to put the graphic up right now. As we're watching, the regulation time. I mean, I thought we were going to get handbags at 5 paces. I thought we're going to get it happened maybe more than once. I mean, what a chess match this was. Is that what you thought as well?
Yeah. So when I was kind of prepping for this game and tweeting about it, one thing I said twice was, do not underestimate NCFC. They're not a team, even though they're not particularly spectacular when it comes to USL play. They're a team that are Bradford has got them really well organized. The head coach over there, he's done a commendable job of making NCFC a tough team to beat, and they proved that in their performance against Charlotte. It was always going to be tough to break them down. Charlotte FC has also had issues in the past breaking down teams that defend deep, that are well organized, that mark their players well, cover their zones. Bradford did an excellent job of setting up the team. The players are up for it. I think the players, and this is so cool about US Open Cup, is the players can feel the pressure. There's a real pressure in this competition. And I think NCFC were up for it. The players were up for it. They didn't just want to hang in there. I do think they have some chances to score at times, right? Like it wasn't that they just sat back and it was sort of a massacre. The scoreline's a bit deceptive. NCFC could have very well won this match themselves in regulation.
Yeah, they really could have. And I mean, the amount of pressure that Charlotte absorbed, I'm thinking to myself, the dam is going to break here. They're going to get scored on here one way or the other. It's going to happen, but it didn't, and they really looked good. And then, of course, it ends scoreless into at the end of regulation. You go into extra time, and finally the dam did break. Lil Abada got that opener in the 97th minute. I mean, I think he was in perfect position to put that ball in and made it 1-0.
Yeah, Lil Bot has been on a run here. He's a player that I think a lot of the fan base has been a bit disappointed in. They spent $8 million on him. He is the most expensive in club history, expensive signing, excuse me. And but he's been coming up big lately, coming up with goals. He's been improving, and I mean that's the difference between a USL team and an MLS team, right? We are starting a rotated side, but our rotated side would be one of the better sides in USL, I would argue. Just on quality of players, individual talent alone. Then we're bringing on some of our starters that are just a tier above USL naturally. So that's the advantage of, as the game goes longer, MLS teams have an advantage of having deeper benches and having some high quality players coming off that bench. We had that luxury. Hey, they brought in their own guys as well, and Rafael Metzingen, who ended up scoring the equalizer shortly afterwards. He's been a good player for me. He's an attacking midfielder. Had a great finish, really good finish from him, and it was game on again. I got a little bit nervous, but in the end, the team came through.
Yeah, they really did. And once again, Patrick Ajimong gets that big goal to make it 2-1, going to halftime of extra time. And I mean, I was waiting for North Carolina to get another equalizer, and unfortunately for them, it didn't happen. But great for Charlotte. And Nikola Petkovic in the 119th minute, Kerwin Vargas in second half stoppage time and extra time made sure that the game really was over, and that was it. Charlotte advances into the next round, the fifth round. And overall, since Dean Smith has come to Charlotte FC, what have you liked about his tactics that gives you confidence that Charlotte is now on an uprise here?
Well, I would say it's not so evident right now, and I don't think it's necessarily Dean Smith's fault, but Dean Smith's just defensive solidity, just a very clear identity and style of play that the team has bought into. That's it. He's a very defense-first type of guy. We're going to be tough to beat. We're going to be gritty. We're always going to go into matches with the mentality of, hey, we can win this game. We're able to get results against anybody. And, recent results in Charlotte FC, in their current form, aren't really demonstrating that. But to give people perspective who are not Charlotte FC fans, don't really follow the team, before Dean Smith arrived, the team was bottom 3 in most goals conceded. Dean Smith comes in, and they are now the second-ranked defense at the end of the 2024 MLS season. And they went up 4 places in the MLS the Eastern Conference table. They went from 9th place to 5th place. Talk about an immediate impact. Dean Smith was that. It was very, very apparent, very, very clear, his impact on the team, on the structure, on the locker room health and culture. And he's just a great guy. I fortunately I used to work for Charlotte FC. I spent 3.5 years working there. And Dean Smith was a super nice guy, really, really nice guy, great human being, which just makes it even easier to root for him.
It really is. It really, really is. And now, fifth round, you're going to be heading up to the nation's capital to take on DC United over at Audi Field. While I think they just survived Charleston in the fourth round in extra time. How do you think this match is going to go for Charlotte? Do you feel that this is an advantage for Charlotte going on the road, or do you feel that this is going to be a real tough matchup against DC?
I think it can be sort of a trap game. On paper, we should have no business losing to DC United. We comfortably beat them at home. On the road last season near the tail end of the season. We always get them at the end of the season for whatever reason, but we actually ended up eliminating their playoff chances with a defeat against. They suffered a defeat. So on paper, this should be highly in our favor. However, Charlotte FC are still a different team on the road. If this was at home, I would say, lock it up, put $50 on it. You'll make some cash, right? But on the road, I would never bet on Charlotte FC. Unfortunately, this year, We've struggled on the road this year. We've averaged 2.2 goals conceded on the road. However, I find that MLS competition and then US Open can sometimes live outside of each other. Sometimes teams are just really in form in the cup and just can't find that form in league play. I hope that's the case here. I hope that we can use the Open Cup as a way to sort of fuel the regular season itself. But I'm confident. I still think the team will come out with the win, hopefully in regulation. Obviously, Christian Benteke is a tough challenge, but we do have some of the top center backs in the league. Adilson Malanda, 23-year-old center back. I'd be shocked if we keep him by the end of the year. Really, really class player. Really good matchup against Benteke there. This should be a win. Anything less than a win, well, would be really disappointing if you're a Charlotte FC fan.
Yep, I agree with you there. Caleb, thank you very much for coming back. Once again, it's better late than never. But I appreciate your time. And anytime you want to come back on the show, we'll talk to you during the season. Can't wait to have you back on again. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Caleb Adams, Charlotte FC Podcast, covering Charlotte FC of MLS. And it's just a lot of fun and talking about them. Now, my next guest, unfortunately, could not come on live with me tonight. Something has come up, but that's okay. We were able to record this afternoon for his spot from Cascadia FC. Jeremy Peterman, who covers the Portland Timbers, discussing their victory over the Tacoma Defiance of MLS Next Pro. And here it comes right now. Again, this is the 2025 Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup Round 4 review show. And joining me tonight is my next guest. He covers the Portland Timbers for Cascadia FC. Go to cascadiafc.com. And that is Mr. Jeremy Peterman joining me right now. Jeremy, welcome back to the show. Big victory for the Portland Timbers on the road against, I have to say it. I know you'll say it. Seattle Sounders Light.
Yeah. The Sounders have made basically everyone in the league jealous because of how clear their pathway to the first team is. And what comes next is going to eventually be selling some of those players. But for now, they're more than happy to bring up players that they develop in their academy, bring them through the second team, the Tacoma Defiance, and add them to the supplemental roster eventually with first team contracts and have them contribute for the first team and actually do a pretty good job for the first team as well. So this was not, I would say this wasn't an MLS Next Pro side that we played, which is really weird because they were the last MLS Next Pro team still in the competition. But if you looked at what they've done in league play this year, entering that game, they scored the most goals in the league, powered by a two-headed monster of Osase de Rosario, Dwayne's kid, who has since gotten a first-team contract right after that game, and Yusuke Nome, who came on as a second-half substitution and completely changed the game, allowed the Sounders to blitz the Timbers for 2 goals straight out of halftime, which eventually got erased. But at the same time, I feel like there was obviously everything to lose for Portland, not really anything to gain except passage to the next round. So, despite being like in a state of dread from about minute 55 to minute 80 when Gage Guerra rose like a salmon to head home across from super draft pick Ian Smith to tie the game, that's just something that you have to survive and advance. And that's the goal of Open Cup, just surviving, advancing, doing whatever it takes just to get out of whatever game you're playing. And especially in a hostile environment like Starfire, not really for like the environment aspect, but mostly for the pitch itself, get out of there with a win. And they did that. So I'm pretty excited about it.
No, absolutely. And to see the Timbers, like you said, they survived this round because, there was a hint of, shall we say, nerves. I'm not saying scared, but at least nerves and being nervous that, the Timbers could have been eliminated from this round and the Defiance would have moved on to the next round. When you talk to head coach Philip Neville, who I think he's done a really good job with the Timbers since taking the job after he got sacked at Inter Miami. You know, what has he done differently than the past managers have for the Timbers?
This is such an interesting question because I've tried to find what makes him differently on the field and what makes him different off the field. Now, on the field, I've noticed that there's more of a commitment to a higher line, defending higher up the pitch, which is good because that's something that the Timbers are very capable of doing, and they've done a pretty good job of it this year, especially on the road. He's also sort of developed a culture of accountability, teamwork, and just it's so hard to describe it, but the word that he throws around is mentality a lot. Just having the mentality to make the right plays, having the mentality to be in the right positions, and have the right mentality to win games. And the biggest difference between 2025 and 2024 is that the Timbers are already one game. If they get one road win in the month of May, which their next game is this coming Wednesday in Salt Lake City, which I will be there for. If they win another road game this year, they've already tied the mark they had in the entirety of 2024 for road wins. And last year's road wins were punctuated by this team just getting blitzed early and then having to dig themselves out of holes. This year, they're the ones doing the blitzing, and it can kind of fall apart a little bit at times. But Neville's done a really good job integrating some of the younger players, getting them comfortable, getting them match fit, getting them adjusted to the team in the city as well. So this year has all been about youth and just how he's been able to develop the youth and how the youth are the ones that are carrying this team right now to third place in the Western Conference and a Open Cup quarterfinal.
Would you say right now that this Western Conference is becoming a lot better, maybe a lot more dangerous? I mean, we are seeing what Vancouver's done. We're seeing what Portland's doing right now. Obviously, LAFC will always be LAFC no matter what. But, I mean, is there a shift in power now in this conference?
The fun thing that I like to point out about the West more so than the East is just how big of a factor the travel schedule plays in. Because in the West, you have 3 different time zones being spanned from Minnesota all the way to California. And in the East, most of those teams play in a single they play in the Eastern time zone with, I think, Chicago and I think it's just Chicago is the only
Chicago and Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville. Nashville's in Central Time too. Those are the only 2 teams that are out of the Eastern time zone in the East. So every single road trip for the East, usually the flight isn't that long. It isn't that big of a time zone adjustment. But for Western Conference teams, they're constantly traveling to like from the West Coast to Missouri, from Minnesota down to California, like what I said before. So I think it allows for a lot more parity in the West more so than the East. So what I usually see every year in the Western Conference is every team cannibalizing each other. It's every single Western Conference game is just Western Conference teams taking points off each other. There isn't so much a they should win this game kind of vibe, because when you go on the road and you're traveling, like for example, the Timbers have a very bad history going on the road to Texas in particular. Not so much Austin, actually. I think they have a winning record in Austin. But in Houston and Dallas in years past, they've been awful, particularly in the summer. So when you have to combine that travel schedule to a bunch of teams that are kind of all around the same, I'd say, like strength with their roster, I don't really think there are any like truly weak teams in the West roster-wise. Well, aside from the ones that haven't won their first 12 games. But it makes such an interesting environment for any team to just get hot at a point and immediately climb like 5 spots in the table in the span of 2 weeks.
No, absolutely. And we'll see what happens when the season continues on. Back to the match. Zach McGraw had a great goal in the 33rd minute. in the first half, and it kept that lead going into halftime. What is it about McGraw that gives you confidence for him for having a future with the Timbers?
McGraw is a very interesting player to have scored that first goal because last season he began. He started Neville's tenure as one of the first choice center backs alongside Kamal Miller. And from Neville's opening press conference, his introductory press conference in charge of the team, he said the first player who he contacted was Zach McGraw because they'd overlapped with the Canadian national team when Neville was an assistant there, and McGraw got a call up in that was 23? Yeah, 23 for the Gold Cup. So his past year has not gone the way most people have expected. He lost that starting job when it turned out that Neville's system probably didn't play to McGraw's strengths. It didn't ask him to do a ton of box defense, which is, I think McGraw's one of the best box defenders in the entire league. It had him defend more in the open field where some of his deficiencies, particularly with his open field speed and his sprinting speed, were kind of magnified, especially against DP level attackers and just other fast guys that could be running at him. So he ended up losing the starting job, reclaimed it a little bit during Copa America last year, and ended the season. I think the last game that he played was in Leagues Cup when they lost to St. Louis 3-1 away from home in 2024. He didn't play a single minute for the rest of the year. Then a few days before the season starts this year, he signed a new contract extension. And the team was pretty beat up going into the opening few games of the season. Also, not just in the attack, but on the back line as well. So McGraw started a couple of games, but there was one game in Nashville where he gave away a penalty 5 minutes in, where he wore the captain's armband, by the way. And even though the penalty was saved, there was another saved penalty in that game. But Nashville went into halftime with a 1-0 lead, and he got subbed off at halftime. I'm pretty sure this was his first appearance since then, but he was playing alongside a player who he's played with for a very long time, in Dario Zuparic. And it was very poetic to see him get this goal, mostly because it just has not been a very good past year and a half for him, at least on the field. Off the field, he's gotten married. He's going to have I'm pretty sure his kid's already been born too. But on the field, it's been really tough for someone who I thought had Defender of the Year shouts in 2023 for how integral he was to keeping the Timbers at least somewhat afloat in the back, just by being one of the best box defenders in the league. So, yeah, very happy for him. However, he did pick up an injury in this game. He did not travel. He did not feature in the matchday squad last weekend. So it's just a matter of what's he going to look like? Could he potentially see some minutes in Salt Lake, especially with so many more matches coming in May? But, yeah, he needed that goal, and I'm just really happy for him.
No, absolutely. And, of course, as we already said, Defiance got 2 goals in the span of 2 minutes. Oase de Rosario got the equalizer. Then Kanome made it 2-1. And before Gage Guerra got the equalizer in the 80th minute, how nervous were you feeling with this? Because obviously, you're right. This is like the next phase of Seattle Sounders players for their roster in their next pro side. But still, though, you don't want to hear the chirping in the Pacific Northwest rivalry going on here, do you?
I certainly did not. And I had to go to work that night after this game ended. But I was just thinking, just don't ruin my shift. Don't ruin my shift. Please don't ruin my shift. And in addition to like every other day after that, because this would be the type of loss that you can't get over. And thankfully it didn't. This would have been probably a bigger disaster, at least emotionally, than what happened with Cal FC in 2012 when the semi-pro team rocked up to Providence Park, beat the Timbers, who were full MLS at that point. Mm-hmm. So
I remember that game.
Yeah. Very, very, very happy that they were still able to squeak out this win. But it did not help seeing just keep in mind, this was an entire depth lineup for Portland. I'd say I classify only 2 players in that lineup as true starters first choice options of their positions. And even so, they're rotational. That would be Kevin Kelsey, who ended up scoring the game-winning penalty, and Joao Ortiz, who ended up getting subbed off because they had another game on the weekend. So, yeah. So I'm just happy that even though they didn't look great playing together, it was many of their first times playing with each other. Particularly also new signing Omir Fernandez, who made his first Timbers start in this game, and was asked to play as kind of centrally as the 10. So, yeah, it's more so like looking back on that half hour from minute 50 to minute 80, it was just so much dread, but I'm happy that I hopefully will never have to feel like that again watching a Timbers game, because it would be different when you're just losing to the Sounders first team. And I've seen this team have horrific losses to the Sounders, one in particular, the 6-2 in 2021. But this would be something that I would probably never be able to get over. And I'm very happy that I can just come on here, be all smiles, and just keep saying they got the job done. They got the job done.
Exactly. Were you actually, before the penalty was awarded to the Timbers, were you nervous that this match could have gone to extra time after Guerra got the equalizer?
I was, because even though the Timbers were they had the momentum at that moment of the game, but it was a question of would they be able to find the final ball, and they spent the most of the second half, at least after Guerra's equalizer, because Guerra's equalizer kind of came out of nothing. Tacoma just kind of dropped their intensity. They stopped trying to go quickly on the counter, take advantage of maybe some Portland fullbacks who were getting a little bit too high in the wide areas and leaving space in behind. But even though they had the momentum, this team, even like the first choice team, has been struggling with finding the final ball all year. So I'm really happy that Georgie Manungu took that exact moment to say, I'm going to pull on Kevin Kelsey's shirt right here. It was a conscious decision. You don't do that without thinking about it, because I think he just wanted to go home, and like myself, I just wanted to go to work and not have to think too much about this game. So, thank you to Georgie Manungu, who set up both Defiance goals, but then decided to play the hero in the end for Portland. Can't ask for much more than that.
No, you cannot. That's really funny. So now, fifth round on a Tuesday night, May 20th, and that will be on CBS Sports Network, as Portland will be on the road to take on the San Jose Earthquakes at PayPal Park. What gives you concern about this one? But at the same time, we all know this month's going to be a loaded month with matches in league play. Are you expecting rotation from Bruce Arena, and do you think Neville will have rotation himself?
Well, this is very interesting, because from the second that the Timbers won this game, it was clear they were not going to be able to host if either Sacramento or San Jose won. When it was San Jose, I was like, oh, great, here we go again, because 2 weeks ago, the Timbers went down to PayPal Park, which I refer to as the airport because it's still right next to San Jose's airport. They went to the airport and they lost 4-1. I think it's one of the worst losses they've ever had in San Jose. And I think the worst road loss of Neville's tenure so far. Mm-hmm. And Neville spoke after the game. He said that the players who took a 7-match unbeaten streak into that game, he said they got too confident, they got too cocky. This was a humbling that they needed. And yeah, that the whole point of streaks is that they're meant to be broken and they're going to end. So they responded pretty well to it, not only against Tacoma, even though there wasn't a ton of overlap between players who were on the pitch for that and players who were on the pitch in San Jose. But they also responded to it well this past weekend with a 1-0 victory against Kansas City. Here's what I think about the rotation. So they're in Salt Lake City on Wednesday. Then they host Seattle, the big Seattle, on Saturday. Then they go to San Jose. But after that, there's a road trip to Orlando, which is very interesting, having an Eastern Conference road trip in this already, with a very difficult flight, as I've mentioned earlier with the time zones. So they're going to have to do the full 3 hours. And Orlando is, I think, Portland's farthest road trip this year, because it's exactly southeast as the crow flies, complete opposite corner of the country from Portland. So I think that rotating for Orlando would be better than rotating for the Open Cup game, because this is Portland's 50th anniversary. They were founded in 1975. The club is 50 years old this year. They've never won the U.S. Open Cup. Entering this season, once it was announced that the Timbers would actually be qualified for Open Cup via whatever nonsense, whatever MLS says, like teams qualify for it.
The nonsense. We'll call it the nonsense. Absolutely.
Yeah, the nonsense. Based on MLS's nonsense, they were in the Open Cup. So I was just thinking about how it would be so sweet if they won that tournament this year. And I think it's the tournament they have the highest chance of winning, because once again, it's 5 games? All you have to do is win 5 games and you get a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot and you get the Open Cup trophy. And both of those would be really desirable to both the Timbers front office, the Timbers players, and the Timbers fans. So it would not surprise me if they decided to play some players on short rest after what's bound to be, regardless of the result, a draining match against the Seattle Sounders. And
absolutely.
Do a little bit more rotation against Orlando, who are interesting to say the least.
Yes, they are. And I agree with you completely. It's better to rotate that roster for the road trip to Orlando than to rotate it for the Open Cup game against the Earthquakes. So we'll see what happens there, and we'll see what San Jose does too. Bruce Arena knows what to do. As he's been doing this for how long now? Bruce Arena's been doing these things in this sport since 1996 professionally in MLS at DC. Boy, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And once again, you can watch all Open Cup matches online streaming at Paramount Plus, either through the app or on the website. You could also watch it linearly on CBS Sports Network, like Portland and San Jose will be on Tuesday, May 20th. And, of course, Golazo Network as well. You can watch it for free online at PlutoTV.com. Jeremy Peterman from Cascadia FC. Jeremy, as always, thank you very much for joining me today. And good luck with the Timbers in the Open Cup in the 5th round.
I'm hoping for good luck, too. I want to bring that trophy home more than anything this year.
All right. And that, once again, is Jeremy Peterman from Cascadia FC. Join him and Michael Martinez as they cover the Pacific Northwest soccer clubs, Seattle Sounders, Vancouver Whitecaps, and Portland Timbers. Exciting and a lot of fun to read their articles and to get their insights of those 3 Pacific Northwest clubs. Now, quickly, time for the New York Red Bulls and their victory over Colorado Springs Switchbacks. As you can see, a domination by the New York Red Bulls. Mohamed Sofo started the goal scoring in the first 16 minutes, and then at the back end of the first half in the 44th minute gets his second of the match, and then Dennis Yengar making it 3-0 in the 64th minute. But it would be Anthony Fontana in the 72nd minute to pull one back to keep Colorado Springs in the match. But at the end of the night, it would be Sean Nealis getting that 4th goal in the 85th minute. Alexander Hack and Sean Nealis got booked as well in this matchup, but still, though, it doesn't matter. The New York Red Bulls winning by a final of a goal to 4, defeating the Colorado Springs Switchbacks over at Widener Field in downtown Colorado Springs. And the defending USL Championship winners will now concentrate on their league and the Jägermeister Cup from here on out. And, of course, as we will always show you the schedule for the 5th round of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, the 2025 edition. And here we go. Once again, all matches will be streamed linearly, digitally through Paramount Plus. And if you want to watch matches on the Golazo Network, it will be live either through the Paramount Plus website and app or as well on PlutoTV.com. And linearly, if you're going to watch any matches on CBS Sports Network, those are the listed matches that will be on CBS Sports Network. Here it is, Tuesday, May the 20th, only 2 matches. We'll have the New England Revolution hosting the Chicago Fire over at Gillette Stadium, unless there's a change in venue that we'll find out later on. And that'll be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on CBS Sports, Galazzo Network, and Paramount Plus. And then the nightcap, the San Jose Earthquakes hosting the Portland Timbers at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, CBS Sports Network, and once again, Paramount Plus digitally. And then on Wednesday, May the 21st, we have 5 matches that will begin at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So expect the Galazzo Network to have the Galazzo Show, meaning whip around action. If you are going to keep up to date and stay track of goals, red cards, yellow cards, saves on the Galazzo Network, that will probably be with both Nico Cantor and Mike Grilla, if not Mike Grilla, someone else from their lineup on the night. And at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports Network and Paramount Plus, the New York Red Bulls hosting FC Dallas at Sports Illustrated Stadium. It's going to be a lot of fun there. And then once again, the rest of it, the Keystone Derby. Philadelphia Union hosting Pittsburgh Riverhounds at Subaru Park. DC United hosting Charlotte FC at Audi Field. Orlando City hosting Nashville SC at Inter&Co Stadium. Minnesota United FC hosting St. Louis City SC, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central. And that will be at Allianz Field. And finally, at the Q2 Stadium in Austin, Texas, Austin FC hosting the Houston Dynamo, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Everything else on Paramount Plus individually. But once again, I believe the Galazzo Show, which will be the whip around show for the Open Cup on Wednesday, May the 21st on Wednesday, will be there for all of us to watch and keep track. So, of course, I'll be watching the New York Red Bulls taking on FC Dallas. I will have the Galazzo Network on my computer to make sure that I keep an eye on everything in the other 4 matches, and then I'll have my own little Paramount Plus app ready to go for Austin FC against the Houston Dynamo. Once again, these matches will be on Tuesday, May the 20th, and Wednesday, May the 21st. Once again, digitally on Paramount Plus, the CBS Sports Galazzo Network through either Paramount Plus or PlutoTV.com, linearly on linear television, CBS Sports Network, on a match on each day on CBS Sports Network. It should be exciting. It should be a lot of fun. And I cannot wait to see what's going to happen there. I want to thank my guests tonight. I want to thank Caleb Adams, Charlotte FC podcast host, John Krysinsky, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, Matt Ralph, Philadelphia Soccer Now, Derek Stowers, Bayou City Soccer, Jeremy Peterman, the Cascadia FC. Join me tomorrow night as I'll have another regular 40 Fire American Soccer show. And once again, this whole month filled with matches from top to bottom. My name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you very much for watching me tonight. And as always, please, I'm asking you and I'm begging you, enjoy your football. Thank you. Have a good night. Take care. So long and bye-bye for now. Have a good night, everybody.